we have reached the season finale.
I can't believe it. I am so fired up right now, Leigh. I have been listening to Hamilton all morning. I'm frankly beside myself currently.
I'm psyched. I'm pumped. I'm fired up.
Yeah.
I am ready to Matt talk this episode.
Oh.
And I should hasten to say, listener, thank you so much for sticking with us through the whole of season 1 of Queer Gals Watch the West Wing. Though, dare I say, this is actually going to be not our finale episode, despite the fact that we are covering the finale episode of season 1 of the West Wing, because we're going to have a little bonus Q&A app next week. So buckle in. We're now in episode 22, but we do have one more episode to come to you of season 1 of Queer Gals Watch.
With just some fun stuff, just a fun debrief moment for us as a crew, some fun questions, some discussion points, perhaps a pop quiz, Leigh.
Indeed.
Which will be the first pop quiz I've ever done. And obviously will lead me to ask the question of like, what even is a pop quiz and why is it called a pop quiz when it's not about pop? Anyway, I digress. Welcome to episode 22. What kind of day has it been? A fun, very Sorkin-esque title. And I did find out via the internet that, in fact, in like basically every TV series he's ever made, the first season's finale is called What Kind of Day Has It Been?
He is just so into his own lore. It's ridiculous.
But Leigh, it goes even further.
He's like the Taylor Swift of screenwriters. He's just like obsessed with his own Easter eggs.
Truly, because the Easter egg goes further, which is he claims that he took the phrase from a man called Robert Whitehead, who was the lead producer of Sorkin's A Few Good Men, who used to use it as like his starting like statement at end of rehearsal days.
Of course, it's like a director thing. Of course it is.
But also, like,
little
I'm
emotional
like,
checkout.
Part of me is like, I actually fucking love that.
Fiona taking this into the rehearsal room
just
now.
writing that down in my diary. So here's to you, Robert Whitehead. Cheers for that, hun. Great ep title, and also just a great way to open a space to, you know, feedback and reflection.
Absolutely, an emotional safe space. What was not an emotional safe space
was just all of this episode.
was all of this episode. And also Aaron Sorkin calling for the Democrats to nominate Mitt Romney in place of Joe Biden.
What?
Aaron Sorkin called for the Democrats to nominate a Republican. As like a call for unity thing. He's lost the plot. He's completely lost the plot.
Sweet baby boy, no.
He then tried to like double back on it and be like, that's not what I meant. But I'm like, you said what you said, Aaron.
The internet has taken that now. You've made your bed, you must lie in it.
Shall we? What kind of day has it been?
To the episode recap. Honestly, as much as I've waxed lyrical about the title so far, it has given me like a sense of fear. It's giving... Like, it's been tough out there.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. The episode recap led me to be very concerned.
Stress levels are high. Like, all it is
The previously on is just like
CJ being left out in the cold by Leo. And then just like a lot of fear for Zoe's life. And it does not help, Leigh, that in our DVD box sets, like there's a little thumbnail for each episode. And the one for this episode was just a hand with a gun in it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even foreshadowing. That's just being like...
That is a Chekhov's gun.
Someone's going to get...
That is a Chekhov's gun. If ever it's Sorkin's gun, if ever I've heard one. Gun. Yeah, I was for sure like, that crazy lady in her 40s is going to come back onto the White House and make an assassination attempt on Zoe. That was where my mind went.
Yes. Also, like, I feel like there was quite a few storylines in the previous episode that I was kind of hoping would follow through and kind of conclude in this episode. Firmly a no.
Firmly a no.
Poor Laurie, we hear nothing more. We just wish her the best.
She's been left out in the cold. She is just dealing with being part of a huge political scandal, but we have no emotional check-in with Laurie.
We've moved on. In the West Wing, we've moved on. Also, Charlie having any point of reflection over perhaps working at a exclusive, in inverted commas, i.e. racist club. Again, no further combos.
We still don't fully understand what happened with Ken Cochran.
No. I think that's going to be a slow burn story. Like Charlie's life before the West Wing, I think is going to be a slow burn.
A slow reveal.
And like raise its ugly head here and there as he grows. But we must, Leigh, away to a live town hall meeting in Virginia. We open on Bartlett. He's like perched on a stool. It's giving boy band.
It's giving Westlife for sure. It's giving
the boys.
It's giving the boys. It's giving Backstreet.
And Bartlett's back. He's back. He is cracking jokes. He's just there being Papa America, you know, chatting about how 18 to 25-year-olds are politically apathetic. Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say that that's really changed.
No.
We cut to the roof for a moment with Gina. She's prepping to be on the move with book bag. Bartlett takes his jacket off, gets a round of applause. Sure, okay. A phone call for Toby comes through and Sam takes it.
Should we be trusting Sam to take Toby's phone calls was my immediate thought. I was like, Sam is going to say something crazy on an important phone call and that's going to be the problem of the episode. And it's somehow going to lead to someone trying to shoot Zoe.
I love that your trust in Sam Seaborn is that low. I was more distracted by Bonnie and her lovely like plum-coloured dress that she was wearing.
It's stunning, yeah, for sure.
But Sam takes this phone call and then this cues kind of a weird sort of like the lads like signaling across rooms to each other with this like weird hand signal. So Sam signals to Toby. Toby then signals to Josh, who then signals to Leo, who is slightly confused for a moment, and then he signals to Jed. All will become clear with the hand signal. But for a while there, I was confused. CJ pulls Danny to one side and she's like, I've got a tip for you. It's about the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Which led me to question, are we going to space? Because I don't want to go to space. I never want to go to space.
I cannot express to you how little I am interested in space travel and space exploration. Now,
I like it on Earth. I don't want to go to space.
A caveat. I think that astronauts are incredibly intelligent. I'm not here throwing shade on anyone's occupation.
There are several female astronauts who are incredibly hot.
Exactly. Important news. But I just think that the Earth is in a terrible state and perhaps maybe we should just focus on what's down here.
I'm not a scientist. What do I need to go to space for?
I know. Like, that's my thoughts. Like, do I want to go and live on Mars? No, I'd rather just die here. You know? If
the Earth is going down, I'm going down with it. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. She's seen me through so far. Like, I'm not going to abandon her at the end.
Exactly.
The Secret Service queens are like moving around. There's lots of talking into sleeves. Gina spots something in the crowd. But what's going on? Everyone's on the move. People are leaving the town hall meeting and being bustled towards their cars. Gina's stressed. She's seen something, Leigh. We zoom in on Gina's face. A look of horror.
But before we zoom in on Gina's face, she does seem to be scoping out whether or not Bartlett is an ally to the lesbians due to his interest in softball, which I just wanted to note.
Yeah, there's a lot of softball chat in this episode.
For context, I had a friend in high school whose mother used as a kind of to insinuate that she thought someone looked gay or butch. Her kind of code for that would be, she looks like she plays softball. So I have always therefore associated softball as code for lesbian.
Yeah, I kind of love that.
Back to the high stress level.
Sorry, back to immediate death threats from all angles.
She's seen something.
She's seen something. It cuts to credits.
And as we know, Fi, she knows what she's looking for in a crowd.
I trust Gina. I trust Gina with my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, in the kind of couple of scenes before we cut to opening credits, Charlie walks over to Josh and we have this like lovely throwback to the first episode that Charlie's in. Charlie like shakes Josh's hand and he says, "You're right, it doesn't go away." Like the kind of feeling of awe of like where you work and who you're working with.
I cried. This was when I began crying. Like we've not even gotten to the credits yet and I was already crying in this episode.
But my worry is, Leigh, why are we giving Charlie like a moment of reflection? Why are we giving...
Fi, I can't go there.
Leigh,
I cannot.
Leigh.
I cannot
Leigh.
Go there. I won't go there. I won't go there with you, Fi.
We know that Sorkin foreshadows in a very heavy-handed way.
But we thought this with Ron, the Secret Service agent, and he's still alive and well.
Okay.
I know we've been burned by Morris.
I will never be over. I will never be over Morris being like, look at my wife and baby, and then dying in the next scene. I swear to God. Okay, we're out of credits. It's 12 hours earlier.
Oh dear God, I'm stressed. I now realise that I'm going to have to wait for the rest of the episode to find out what Gina has seen.
Exactly. We find ourselves in this situation room. We're with Percy Fitzwallace, our fave.
Hey, Fitzwallace, just the man we need.
Just a safe pair of hands, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We find out that we have an F-117 Nighthawk, which is a type of plane.
Yeah.
And it is down in Iraq. Drama.
Yes.
But no time to think about that because Jed is on the move and talking about softball. So our kind of running joke, our bit in this episode is just that Jed is going to be watching softball and kind of everyone shitting on softball. Now,
which feels both misogynist and homophobic.
Truly. So what I respect from Jed Bartlett is he's like, look, I've got some time this evening in the car on the way back from Virginia and I would like to watch a live sports event. Now, I don't care what sports event that is. I just want to engage with live sports. It so happens that it's a college league softball game. So I will support the gals and watch it. Frankly, that's allyship.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know what? If it's a choice between anything and cricket, I'm always going to choose the other thing.
Jed does say, now I'm an educated man, Charlie, but when someone tries to explain cricket to me, all I want to do is hit them in the head with a teapot.
And Jed, I couldn't agree more.
Preach.
I could not agree more.
Preach.
Cricket men are the worst type of men. No shade to actual cricket players, but men that go and watch the cricket, ew, get away from me.
I would say that on a par with golf men.
But like more like aristocrat vibes, I feel.
Do you really think that? It's not really the vibe for me at all. I think
maybe it's just because I see it as like a symbol of
imperialism.
The British imperialism.
I mean, it very much is, but like cricket's like it's quite a lad's like boozy day out because essentially it lasts for like days and nothing.
Yeah, I just don't understand and I never will and I don't want to.
It is dull. I am bored. I never want to talk about cricket again.
Some like badass women, however, like in a batting cage, just like absolutely thwacking a ball out of the horizon.
Actually, caveat: women's cricket.
Is that a thing?
I don't know, but I could be into that.
Yeah.
Let's Google later. Anyway, we are in the press room and we are prepping for the town hall that we are going to. So CJ is classically trying to run the room professionally, as we know. But we know, Leigh, Jed does not like to be directed. He resents direction.
Yeah, he's a classic kind of leading actor that's like, I've actually decided on my character arc, Fiona. So like, I don't need any direction. Thank you so much, though.
He's like, so CJ, like, if I'm sat here and like the water jug's there, like, how does the water get in the glass? And CJ's like, haha, like, please, I'm working so hard.
I just hate that we've now like, we started the season setting CJ up as like top of her game, so powerful. And I just don't know why we're ending the season with this vibe of like CJ is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I don't like that there's a bit of a vibe that like, oh, she's a woman, she worries.
It's only like crept in the last like 3 or 4 episodes. And I find it really frustrating that we've given her kind of a downward arc in terms of the other characters' esteem.
Yeah. Do you know what's also really awkwardly? Every single line Mandy has in this episode, she gets interrupted. Yeah. She never finishes a line. She's gagged. I'm
sorry. I just need to sit with that for a moment. That is tough.
That's tough.
That is really tough.
Here's to you, Moira Kelly. Would have been a tough table read.
Pouring one out for you, Moira. You were dealt such a shit hand.
The thing that we also find out in this scene is that we're going back to the Space Shuttle Columbia. Because Jed says to Sam, like, oh, like, how's Toby doing? Like, has he heard anything about Columbia? Sam's like, what do you mean? And then Jed's like, because his brother is on the space shuttle. Toby's brother is an astronaut?
I was gagged. I was gagged.
But what is the additional information, Leigh? He is not just on the space shuttle with other astronauts. He's also on the space shuttle with 4 red-bellied Japanese newts.
Fiona, I was beside myself. Beside myself.
Astronewts.
Please. Best gag of the season. Best gag of the season.
Hands down. Simple wordplay. So I think we should away to Toby to see how he's doing about so the space shuttle was supposed to land and hasn't.
Yeah.
That is the news that we have.
He's an anxious king.
Trez anxious here. Toby is like in the kind of central area of their like group of officers. He's with Bonnie and Ginger, and he's
both looking absolutely phenomenal twin sets. Just to throw that in there,
looking lovely. The girls never looked better. But he's just prepping some classically pessimistic questions. Cue Sam entering and just being like, "I kind of thought we were friends, and like you never told me that you had a brother, and like I kind of thought we were close." And
he is like upset about it.
And like for the whole episode, he's kind of like, like you can tell me, like, you can tell me anything. And Toby's like, I mean, not really. Like, we're kind of colleagues.
We're not close.
We're not close, Sam.
Need I say again, Sam, we are not close.
To Donna and to Josh.
Cute little half up, half down from Donna.
Yeah, it's fun because she normally just wears her hair straight. So we love that. Josh has got a meeting with Hoynes. Ew. Never a good sign to need Hoynes for something.
No.
But also the only time that Hoynes could take the meeting, Leigh, was if he and Josh went for a jog together.
Which just confirms evermore, in the words of Taylor Swift, it just confirms evermore to me that Hoynes is the kind of man that I hate most. Being like, oh, I'm so busy. The only way you could possibly fit you in is if you join me for my workout. Because, like, I actually work out.
It's, you know what I was trying to figure out? Actually, do you know what? I'm going to come to this when we are on the jogging scene because I have some thoughts to share. Honestly, it tracks that Hoynes is like, I take meetings while I jog. I hate that. What I also hate is Josh being like, ugh, order me some chicken and some pasta. Nothing like a meeting you got to carb up for. Josh, it's a jog.
I just hate that.
Sorry,
I feel
it's
like
a jog?
I feel like it's a power play to be like, oh, like if you want to take a meeting with me, you're going to have to be able to keep up with my pace while I jog.
Well, that, but also I just hate, like, why do some men think that in order to do any exercise, they need to like bulk eat protein beforehand?
If I have one more man ask me how I get enough protein being a lifelong vegetarian, I will throw that man through the window.
Yeah, true. Josh, it's simply a jog. You could just have some breakfast, a bagel, maybe some fruit and yogurt.
Yeah.
A glass of water before. That's probably all you need. You'll be fine. It's a fucking jog. Okay? A lot of DC is flat. It's a jog.
Yeah.
Okay? Small conjecture. Donna has sent Josh's chair to be fixed by her friend Curtis. A moment, I think, for Curtis, because I'm like, if you've got a friend who's like into kind of like furniture restoration, for me, that's queer-coded.
Yeah, for sure.
And her friend Curtis is like her new gay friend.
Yeah, who's like, honey, Donna, you can do better than that. Oh, so he's the deputy chief of staff? I don't care. Is he hot?
He's like, go for the VP, go for the president. Come on, girl. Keep your options open. Give me that chair. I'll fix that chair for you. Like,
in fact, let's go through the Senate. Who from the Senate can we get for you?
Yeah. I think I love Curtis.
Yeah.
Back to the Bartlett hot seating. The quality of Jed's answering of questions is so good. Now, I know this is because this is a scripted drama TV series, but I wish for a time where this is more what we expected from the questioning of our leaders.
Yeah, I mean, every prime minister there's been of Great Britain for the past, like, 2 to 3 years, and there's been more than there should have been in that time.
There's been plenty.
It felt like whenever they got asked a question, they were like absolutely shocked and forgot how to speak. Like it would just be like,
I mean, before Biden dropped out of the race, equally just like him and Trump trying to answer questions, chaos. You know, when you're like, there are so many people working in offices to get you information. Like, there is no way that people aren't doing their jobs and prepping you enough. There's no way that this scene isn't happening for real life in the West Wing. Do you know what I mean?
No, but ultimately, like, Trump and Biden are both the generation of our grandparents. And when either of our grandparents, God love them, the ones that are still living, when have any of them done anything because somebody asked them to? They will just do and say what they want and they won't be told otherwise. That is just a factor of that generation.
Oh, I think you're right. But yeah, basically, I expect more. And something I look forward to with Kamala Harris stepping up as the Democratic nominee is just someone who's like able to like kind of like spar with people asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for someone to be able to put together a sentence.
100%.
But don't get comfy, Leigh. Let's not get comfy thinking about the future, because we must away to the Situation Room. We must go to the sit room because we have more information on this plane that's been shot down. So it's a plane that only one person is in. And that pilot appears to have ejected out of his plane. So we don't know if he's dead or alive, but we've got his like tracker. And he is directly between some US forces and some Iraqi forces. So it's like a race to see who's going to save him first.
What a storyline. I love this.
It's really good. Also, a moment for Leo referring to Percy Fitzwallace as just Fitz.
Obsessed.
He's now just going by
We've
Fitz.
seen this relationship develop, I feel, over the course of series 1. He's gone from being like very intimidated by Fitzwallace's like military grandeur and gravitas to now they have a rapport.
Yeah. And so Jed's like, what's the plan? And Fitzwallace is like, look, we're going to send like this and this. We're going to basically try and beat the Iraqi forces there and like get our guy out. At which point, Phil, and I'd like us to just hear out Phil because no one did. Phil's like, hey, you know, maybe we could call an embassy and like, maybe we could try and do like a diplomatic solution. And Leo loses his fucking mind.
Yeah.
And he's like, you want to waste time calling up embassies? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, he's very het up about this. You know, understandably, a life is at stake. But honestly, Leigh, this episode is airing in May 2000. And I would have loved for America to be looking for like diplomatic approaches as like something that perhaps was an option.
It's certainly not like an object of ridicule, you know.
Like maybe as part of a process, some might say. But none of that really matters because obviously Jed's like, what's the guy's name?
Did you say Obi-Jed as in Obi-Wan Kenobi? Is that what you've written in?
No, I think it was supposed to be Ovi, but it just, I missed out.
But I love that. I actually love that as a comp for Jed. Obi-Wan, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the presidency.
Yeah, so Jed's classically like, what's the guy's name?
Because famously, when Charlie first came in, he was like, what's his story?
Yeah, because
he loves a narrative.
He's folksy like that, you know? He's like, where's he from? How old is he? And then suddenly everyone's like, oh, we're getting so upset. And really, all of this is about Captain Scott Hodgkiss. And if it wasn't for Jed Bartlett, we would have forgotten about the human cost here.
Absolutely.
I would say that Jed's sign out of this scene perhaps hasn't aged well.
Has not aged well, no.
He goes for, Phil, if it ends up that Fitzwallace has to call this kid's parents, I swear to God, I'm invading Baghdad.
Not a good look in retrospect. Not a good, no.
But anyway, off to some more awkwardness with Leo and CJ. So Leo has called CJ into his office to sort of like to brief her on what's happening with Captain Scott. But you're like, you're not giving her the whole picture yet again.
And he's very much like hurrying her out of the room like she's not worth his time, which was just not the dynamic before. Where is the energy of Leo standing up to Hoynes and being like, you will never speak to CJ Craig like that again? From like episode 2. He's been so unfair on her for a couple of episodes, and I just don't understand why we're like fully digging into this. Like, he's just so dismissive of her, and it kind of is giving the vibe that Leo is a little bit misogynist towards her.
It definitely feels like he doesn't trust her.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is it means that he was like, oh, well, the thing that happened with the India-Pakistan thing, and you didn't want to lie to the press. So like, I'm just not going to tell you stuff so that you don't have to lie, because obviously you have a problem with that. And she was like, no, I didn't lie. You didn't give me the whole picture. So I said something wrong. It's tricky. And he's like, oh, well, basically, CJ's argument is, look, if CNN get their hands on footage of like a plane burning in a desert, that's going to be the front page of every paper, and it's going to be on every news channel. So like, keep me in the loop. I want to be ahead of that story.
Yeah.
And Leo's like, well, that's the problem with conducting a covert mission in the age of instant news.
Oh, hun, welcome to the age of social media. You are living in simple times.
Simple
Leo.
times. Buckle up, Buttercup, because it gets way worse than this in the future. Like, you're still like no internet on mobile phones.
Yeah.
Like,
You're still in a world where like lots of people don't have home internet.
yeah. So, Leo, this ain't instant news, baby boy.
This is child's play in comparison to what's coming.
There is tension unresolved at the end of this conversation. I don't like it. It feels stressful.
And it just feels like she's getting no credit for her big win at the end of the last episode by correctly predicting that they were going to go up.
No,
in points.
Not at all. We touch base with Josh about the Hoynes thing. So it's a Leo Josh Hoynes plan. But obviously, we don't really get told what that's about, because Josh and all the other male characters are like, cool, a stealth fighter. And just talk about how cool army planes are. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say on that. Sam and Toby. Toby still very stressed. He enters his office and Sam is just like perched on the edge of Toby's desk. And neither I nor Toby appreciate that. In Toby's words, if your ass isn't off my desk, stat.
Looking awfully comfy for a man who, but the previous week, was drafting a resignation letter due to the fact that he'd caused a massive White House scandal. We don't see any of the fallout of that for Sam at all. And yet CJ has been paying for a mistake that wasn't even her own for like 5 episodes.
I know. But the problem is that Sam is entirely like taken up by the fact that Toby isn't his best friend.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Sam's been like, oh yeah, my best friend at work, Toby. And then he's been like, Toby, we're friends, right? Like, we're best friends. And Toby's like, I probably wouldn't even call you a friend. Like, I can't, it's so uncomfortable. Like, Toby is so worried about his brother, but like, you know how Toby's always like very grumpy, very brooding, very sort of like muttly energy. And there is a different quality to the actor's performance in this episode, and it is
completely
stunning. The nuance is stunning because he's not changing what he's saying. He's still saying things that are like quintessentially Toby, but like there's a different sense of like fear and vulnerability like bubbling under the surface, and like he's just not quite projecting as much, and he's just like, it feels like his gaze is inwards constantly.
I'm obsessed with this actor. Obsessed with him. And you just get the sense that like the personal stakes of what he's saying are so much higher. And every single time he speaks about it, it's like we're getting a window into his private, vulnerable self that he doesn't want us to see.
Yeah. Yeah. In his words, when Sam's like, oh, we've got this problem with this stealth fighter that's been shot down. I'm trying to do this rescue mission. Oh, and also like basically the shuttle is like stuck in orbit currently. And they're just trying some more things to try and get it to land. Toby's just like, well, it's a red letter day for US aviation. But his heart's not in it.
Yeah.
It's a classic one-liner from Toby. But like, I was like, oh, okay.
It hits different.
It's different. Anyway, we're jogging. And we're coming back to campaign finance, Leigh.
So glad that we went into dark money. So glad.
Honestly, so Josh is talking soft money with Hoynes, teeing up another great quote from this episode, which is Josh saying, I don't know how we've done it, but we've legalized bribery.
Which I would say is a great explanation of what dark money is.
100%, because he's like, hey, you know, we're getting this much money. The other team are getting this much money. They're coming from the same companies. Like, what's going on? Like, this isn't like unions giving us funding. This is coming from like private companies. Yeah. Hoynes is there jogging along. Like, you can see the cogs whirring. And basically Josh is like, there seems to be a whole lot of like golf and poker games happening. These people are getting a seat at the table because of the money that they're giving, but they're getting a seat at our table and at the other side's table. So like, what is this all about? Because it doesn't feel like it's about real politics.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Then Leigh, we have a crazy, crazy moment between these two.
Yeah.
Would you like to be Josh or would you like to be Hoynes?
I would like to be Josh, please. I'll give the role of Hoynes to you.
Thank you.
I think you could really take it and fly. You've had some experience battling Jed Bartlett when he's right, and you've had some experience battling Jed Bartlett when he's popular. Why in the world would you want to try it when he's both at the same time?
You know something, Josh? Sometimes I wonder if I'd listened to you 2 years ago. Would I be president right now? You ever wonder that?
No, sir. I know it for sure. Josh was a Hoynes guy?
He was a Hoynes girly?
Was a Hoynes guy.
I am flabbergasted.
I need us to dive deeper. I need more explanation in series 2. I need to know what the route is that we're referring to here. What is the backstory?
Yeah, so when we got Josh's CV in that episode, he didn't work for Hoynes.
No.
But I wonder if Hoynes tried to poach him during the primaries. Or if Josh went to him and was like, you need me on your team, I can win you the primaries. And Hoynes was like, haha, okay, yeah, no.
Fascinating.
Juicy
but then
bit of
also,
gossip.
I'm like, when Josh says, no, I know it for sure, like you would have been president if you'd listened to me, is that something that Josh genuinely believes, or my sense is that that is him playing Hoynes to get him over onto his side of the argument?
Yeah, it's a fight between my head and my heart there, Leigh, because my heart wants it to be a play, but my head is like, I don't think Josh is a liar. But maybe that both things can be true, because it's not him being like, I support you. It's him being like, no, like, if you had listened to me, I could have got you into the White House. I'm that good. So maybe it's that. Anyway, quite frankly, I'm flawed. But we must away to a press briefing because, just as CJ suspected, footage of the burning plane has become available.
Ignore CJ's advice at your peril, Leo. That's all I have to say.
So yeah, it never
works out for him when he ignores CJ. It never works out for him.
No, but it's still not a moment of vindication for her either, because it's just like her having to like backtrack. Anyway, we're cutting to the rehearsal another rehearsal that's happening in the Roosevelt room, and Jed continuing to just be too much and refuse anyone's direction. Then like Zoe's there, and I really don't know if she should be like, I don't know, part of me is like, should you be going and like interrupting your dad at work? Like, he is the president. And he's like, my musical director, Zoe Bartlett, everyone. And then he just leaves the rehearsal and just like goes off and walks off with Zoe. He doesn't look great.
No, he's sweating. Why is he sweating? I'm concerned. I really don't need Bartlett going down at a town hall. Do you know what I mean?
No, I was worried about that. And Zoe was like, Dad, are you taking your pills? And he was like, I'm fine. And she just says, fine, go and collapse, which I quite enjoy from like a daughter to a father. She then is like, hey, Dad, like, I hope it's okay, but like Charlie had something that he wanted to say at the briefing. And he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, no worries.
Love Zoe advocating for the boys. They are such a little team.
I know. And then we come back to he does return to the Roosevelt room, at which point he's like, the meeting's over. I'm done. I'm finished. I don't want to practice anymore. He grabs Charlie and he's like, hey, Charlie, like Zoe said you had something you wanted to say to me.
And Charlie gets all bashful.
Yeah. And he's like, no, it was nothing important. And I just want Charlie to stand up for himself, because I feel like he's worked for the president for long enough to like have something interesting to contribute.
Yeah, fully. Also, we've been talking about youth vote. So like Charlie has that perspective of being like the one Gen Xer in the room.
Yeah. Like he is between 18 and 25.
Exactly.
We do also get the explanation of the signal here, which is so the signal that we saw at the very start of the episode, the sort of swooshing arm movement. Sam's like, this is the signal we're going to use like at the town hall meeting if we need to tell you that like the pilot, Captain Scott, has been rescued safely.
Yeah.
Cool. Bartlett's like, okay, hun, like, sure. Sam's like, it's a really good signal. But let's hear about that. To Leo's office and a debrief about the Hoynes meeting. This was a very fun scene for me. I really enjoyed it because Josh...
A fiery exchange.
Josh arrives and is like ready for his praise and like ready to be told what a good boy he is. And like Leo shreds him.
Yeah.
Because when Josh was talking about like Bartlett's increasing popularity to Hoynes, he was like, oh, you know, we did this poll and like we went up this many points. He's going to do this town hall. He's going to go up another however many points. And like, you know, when we rescue this guy from Iraq, like it's going to go up X amount of points. And Leo's like, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
Saying that. Like, this is an active rescue mission. Like, we don't even know if he's alive. Like, why would you be taking something of that importance and with stakes as high as that and like making light of it for like a bit of political leverage? Like, are you kidding? And then a little flicker of Leo's backstory again, because he says, as a guy who flew planes in the war, I was offended.
Obsessed.
Which war?
I think we're talking Vietnam.
Yeah, because
if we think about it, so
Mrs. Landingham's sons were only just old enough to sign up for Vietnam, or to get drafted even. And let's say that Leo's maybe like 10 years younger than Mrs. Landingham.
The Vietnam War was 1955 to 1975. From the context of The West Wing, it only ended 25 years ago.
Okay, so and we're saying that Leo's like 60?
Yeah. So
he could have been flying at like age 35.
He could have, or you know, it started in 1955, so he could have been like in his 20s.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad that we've worked this out. I mean, him and Toby should link up about their like shared, like kind of war-based.
We've still not had an explanation as to like why Toby is so affected by veterans.
I have so much to say about this. Okay. I've come up with a narrative. Just buckle up. Leo rounds off this conversation with Josh by saying, you did good today. I'm just saying there's a way to be a person.
What an absolutely perfect takedown of Josh.
Personally, I love it because it's what he needs, which is, no, you did well. I know that you need to hear that, but like, be human.
I'm going to take that into my own life. Whenever someone just like disappoints me, I'm going to be like, there's a way to be a person. I am glad that CJ's not the only one who's getting it in the teeth from Leo this week. But yeah. I do just feel like it's way more deserved with Josh than it is with CJ.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry. I'm just like really on my high horse about CJ.
It's because it's making me worried about her future in the West Wing. That's why I'm so stressed about it. Then, like, as they get up to go to leave, like, I think Leo just sort of, like, stretches. And then Josh, like, goes in to hug him. And Leo's like, what the hell are you doing? And Josh is like, oh, I thought you were going in for a hug. And Leo just says, man, did you read that wrong?
The rejection of the hug is the best thing I've ever seen.
Perfection. True perfection. And on the way out, Josh is like, oh, by the way, Leo, this is the signal for if we do, like, rescue the captain. And Leo just says, looks like a hip-hop gesture.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. A hip-hop gesture. No notes. Charlie and Zoe are having a moment to argue in Josh's office because Charlie's like, you shouldn't have said anything to your dad. Like, if I'm going to say something, I should, like, do it myself. He's just so fucking respectful, Leigh.
He's just so worried about like being inappropriate by offering ideas. He thinks he would be like speaking out of turn. And it's like, no, Charlie, you have a valued perspective.
Yeah, and like Zoe's trying to Matt talk him and be like, well, you know, like you should be putting yourself out there. Like, go get him, Tiger. At which point, Charlie's like, Zoe, I work in a building with the smartest people in the world.
Cute. Josh does a pratfall.
Like such a sensational pratfall because he goes to sit in his chair that is not there because Donna's friend Curtis is fixing it. And the physical comedy, I needed that from Josh. I needed him to like laugh at himself.
I also like love the depiction of Zoe and Charlie like fighting as a young couple. I think they like fight so respectfully.
Yeah, it's like they do actually disagree all the time, which I think is healthy. Because I would so much rather that than like just lovey-dovey like adoration with no substance, you know?
Yeah, fully. They challenge each other, which I love.
A quick update on Toby's brother. The shuttle is stuck in orbit. And so there's like a finite amount of time basically that the shuttle can be in orbit before realistically the astronauts will die.
Perish.
That's the word I was searching for.
I was like, is Toby's brother about to die in the season finale? I didn't see this coming.
Wouldn't that be crazy? That would be crazy. But to Jed in full recline yet again. Just like he is laid out on one of the sofas in the Oval Office with like his like the back of his hand to his forehead. Like he's a swooning woman in the Victorian era. But Charlie's like, hey, can I have a minute? And he does. Like after his little argument with Zoe, he tells Jed his ideas. And Jed's like, look, I kind of don't have time for this, but like put the papers in my briefcase. And I'll look at them in the car on the way over to the town hall. So I'm very proud of Charlie. Cue Fitzwallace.
Oh, Fitzy. May I call him Fitzy?
Why not? Let's go for it. Let's have a pet name.
He's all nervous about this call and he like wants to wait for word as well. And apparently they're going to get like an update on the captain.
So like he and Jed are sat in the Oval Office by the phone waiting for this update. Cue some fun trivia about the eagle on the carpet of the Oval Office, which I was thrilled to learn personally, which is that like it has the olive branch in one hand and talon in one talon, and then what's in the other one?
The arrows.
The arrows in the other one. And depending on whether or not America is like declared in a state of war, is like whether the eagle's head is looking towards the olive branches or the arrows. And I was like, super fun trivia, Fitz. Love this from you.
What a fun fact for parties.
What a fun fact for parties, but also no one in this show is good at waiting quietly.
No.
We must waffle. But the phone does ring. And who's on the phone, Leigh?
Captain Scott Hotchkiss is on the phone.
Yeah.
He's exiting Iraqi airspace.
He's exiting airspace and all he has is a sprained ankle.
Stunning.
Like, I'm sorry, but Fitzwallace, you've knocked this out the park.
I never doubted you for a moment, Fitzy.
We didn't doubt Fitz for one moment, but I love that. I love Jed's like, hey Scott, how's things? How's the ankle? Hey, before we chat for too long, can I get your parents' number? I never get to do this. He loves to talk to people's parents. Good news or bad news.
He loves to speak to people's parents, yeah.
Jed is someone who is not afraid of making a phone call.
No, he loves a phone call, dare I say.
And that is the difference between him and I. Among many others. Right, let's check in with CJ and Danny. Because things are still not vibey between the two of them.
No.
CJ's just wrapped up another press briefing. She comes off the stage. Carol's fired up. Carol's like, nice.
She's like politely flirting over her spelling with CJ, but like in a way that would not at all be disrespectful to her partner. It's just like some fun, harmless flirting.
And we just have another hot, sexy argument between CJ and Danny in CJ's office. And Danny's like, I'm not staying in the penalty box forever. And CJ's just having none of it. And they're just really angry with each other. And it's really hot, but I am worried that this means it's never going to happen. Yeah. There's only so much time that you can be mad at one another without it just actually
becoming sour,
killing the vibe. Anyway, with finding out that Captain Hotchkiss is okay, Jed is all fired up and ready to go to this town hall meeting. Cue Dolores Landingham coming into the frame. We've missed her. She hasn't had enough screen time recently.
Obsessed.
Jed's bragging about the fact that he's going to watch the softball.
And of course, she's a softball girly.
I imagine she played
She's
softball.
across it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What if Dolores played in like the League of Their Own back in the day?
Don't you dare. That's it. That's canon now.
Yeah.
That's the story. And like her husband was like injured in the war. Like he was back home injured during the war and was like, okay, I guess I'll go to one of these like ladies baseball games, like whatever. sees her like hit a fucking incredible home run and is like, I'm going to marry that girl.
Yeah.
And then
Obsessed.
he did. Why am I crying?
She played for the Peaches. It's now fact.
Please. This isn't even real. I just made it up. Why am I crying?
You just made yourself cry.
Jed is like, you're not going to spoil my good time for me. And Dolores just says, oh, sir, I think we both know from experience that's not true. And he's like, do you see me walking out the door? And she says, no, I see you standing and arguing with a senior citizen.
I just love that she takes absolutely no bullshit from Jed Bartlett.
No. Jed is running late, but instead of going to his car, he instead goes to Toby's office. And like, basically, I think has just like noticed Toby's been absent today and is like going and having a little check-in.
Yeah.
Just to try and make him feel better. Do you want to be Toby and I'll be Jed?
Cool.
When you're done tonight, you should take the next flight out to Edwards Air Force Base, meet the thing when it lands, and stop being a horse's ass and talk to your brother.
Mr. President, I appreciate your trying to be a comfort, and I appreciate that you have some understanding of the situation with my brother, but the thing was supposed to land 19 hours ago. Obviously, there's a problem. It's space travel, and I don't believe any problem is minor.
The shuttle flies itself, Toby.
No, it doesn't, Mr. President.
And then, like, very respectfully, Jed's like, okay, like, I'm going to let you process this how you need to. Like, me kind of go-girling you isn't what you need. I hear that. I'm going. Okay, here's when I get to my conjecture about Toby. I think Toby and his brother are orphans. Stay with me. Stay with me. I think that it's just Toby and his brother. I think they're very close in age. And I think their father was in the Air Force. And they like lived on like, they were moved around as kids. They were like living on different bases. And because of that, like Toby's brother was like, I'm going to go one above like the Air Force. I'm going to go astronaut.
I love the narrative of Toby being a military brat. I do actually see that massively.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like Toby's brother is hot. Like, I feel like Toby's brother is exceptionally hot, and there's like a marked difference in the like how conventionally attractive the two brothers are.
Oh, see, for me, I thought the conflict was going to come from like, I grew up as a military brat and I went into politics because that was the thing that I found passion from, like watching my dad do what he did. But my brother decided to become an astronaut and he was the favorite. And he was the one that my dad like favored. And that's where the rub is. But I think the dad had a lot of PTSD, and I think his dad is the veteran character, and I think his dad is dead.
Do we think his dad died in Vietnam?
I think more so it's like dad came back from war, he was never the same, and then like he just like left one day, or like he had a heart attack. Like
with you,
there's some trauma there. Anyway, that's my theory. I think the mother either died when they were children, cue more orphan storyline, or she's like very present, like very loud, very fun.
Yeah, I would love for Toby to have like an overly involved, freshing mother.
Yes, like that's where all his anxiety comes from.
Yeah.
We're now back to where we started the show. We are at the town hall meeting. We're back to the call coming in from Peter Jobson, who is the guy, like kind of the NASA guy.
Yeah.
So the signal is, in fact, because we know that Captain Hotchkiss is okay, the signal is actually that Toby's brother and the space shuttle have landed.
Adorable.
The relief on Toby's face is unbelievable. Like the actor the actor doesn't have a line. He just like, the performance.
His whole body
sensation.
Just changes.
Yeah. Gina is outside the front of the town hall. She's like trying to look for something in the crowd. It's obviously excellently cast, like young.
Unfortunately, this young scary man is excellently cast as a baby Nazi. And like, I'm so sorry to say this about this man, but like, it is very much his casting. Yeah. For sure.
It's just like white supremacist.
Yeah.
Neo-Nazi. Yeah. Jed signs off, like, is like kind of signing off his town hall by saying, you know, like, I'm not the president. I'm actually just an economics professor. And I don't know if I hate this or I love this.
Yeah. And then he just goes like full Emily Gilmore and gives his full Daughters of the American Revolution credentials.
You know, like, he is across the DAR and like he's gone to a lunch there. with Abby.
The DAR fully endorsed Bartlett, I feel.
I fully agreed. So this is the backstory that we get. My ancestor, Dr. Josiah Bartlett, was the New Hampshire delegate to the Second Continental Congress, the one that sat in session in Philadelphia in the summer of 1776, and announced to the world that we were no longer subjects of King George III, but we were rather a self-governing people. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal.
So what we're getting here is that Jed Bartlett is like a 6th gen Nepo baby.
Yes. And then he signs off the whole thing by just saying, class dismissed. God bless you and God bless America. Like everyone's happy, everyone's clapping, everyone's like getting up to leave. But the music, Leigh, is so tense.
What is Gina seeing? What did Gina see?
Like people are moving, but not quick enough. Like Toby's chatting with Jed. Jed's going and working the crowd. Zoe's very fired up and like giggling with and like trying to like engage Gina in conversation. Gina's like desperately trying to like get eyes on this neo-Nazi kid. Then like Zoe's like chatting with Charlie and I'm like, should we be letting them be so close together? We get a shot from up in the window where this neo-Nazi guy is looking. There's shooters,
Oh my
Leigh.
God, there's a shooter.
There's a shooter.
There is a shooter.
There are plural people in the window with guns.
I did not see this for the season finale, series 1. I did not see this.
No, at which point Gina like swivels towards where the Nazi kid was, and he has a moment where he's like, oh God. And then he turns, pulls off his cap and like runs through the crowd. Gina flips back around, like whispers to herself, I saw something. Get in the car, Zoe. Shooting. So much shooting. Gina pulls Charlie down. Jed is being
Secret Service agents are just like body tackling, like CJ to the ground, Josh to the ground.
Jed's being bundled into a car. Toby's being like trampled in the fray. And the ending credits start to roll as we hear the Secret Service comm saying, we've got people down here. We need help. And who's been hit? Who's been hit? And that is the end of season 1.
Fi, we do not know who has been hit. We do not know.
The goosebumps.
Goosebumps fully all the way up my arms.
What a finale. Like, what a finale. Imagine having to wait.
I mean,
I've had half to wait a year.
I've had to wait like a week since I watched this episode. And I am unfortunately unable to handle myself. Fi, it really looked like Charlie went down. Like, I feel like I saw a bullet hit Charlie.
I wouldn't put it past Sorkin to just kill off someone that we've just spent a season getting to know. But I don't know who.
I mean, we know that we do know that Mandy isn't in series 2, but Mandy wasn't there.
That would be so tough for Mandy. Okay. That was a really long episode recap, gang, but there was so much to go through and I was having a lovely time. Shall we do our quick fires?
Yeah. Okay. I was so beside myself. I think when I was like watching this episode, I don't even know if I thought about the quick fires.
Me too. Under best fashion, I was just like, I was so stressed. I
didn't see the fashion.
No.
I was in a first for me. I wasn't paying attention to the clothes.
The only note I do have is that like I think CJ has been dressed much more casual the last few episodes. There's been a lot more of just like her wearing like a blouse, like a shirt, like in like a slack. Like she's not wearing the skirt suits that she was wearing at the top of the season.
Yeah, interesting.
What could a British or Irish politician never get away with? I personally think for me, like I'm an economics professor. Kind of like, don't think of me as like the prime minister. I'm just an economics professor.
I think probably like going through and recapping their entire prestigious family history would not go down well.
No, that in fact would be a big ick.
Yeah,
big ick.
For sure.
In terms of how long until like guns, abortion, free speech, religion, are like bingo card of big ticket items came up. I mean, war. I mean, casually like potential war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
We just moved on from that quite quickly, though. Man, I feel like a man.
Phil, if it ends up that Fitzwallace has to call his kids' parents, I swear to God, I'm invading Baghdad.
Yeah, that's a solid.
Invading an entire country to avenge one man. I'm sure that Scott Hotchkiss is a great guy.
Yeah.
Do we need to invade an entire country in order to avenge one individual?
Probs not. I think Class Dismissed, God Bless You and God Bless America is up there for me, closely followed by Order Me Some Chicken and Some Pasta. Nothing like a meeting you got to carb up for. Just stop, Josh. Stop it. And the moment that made you proudest to be an American?
Jed Bartlett just on stage at a town hall saying, "There's a guy on my staff named Charlie Young. He showed me a report for the Center of Policy Alternatives that 61% of you think the politics have failed your generation."
Yeah. For me, I think mine was very much tied to that because mine was Charlie saying to Josh, "You're right. It doesn't go away."
It does just feel like we've had some overly sentimental moments with Charlie in this episode, and we've like almost had like, oh, we've like Charlie has completed his arc. He's like gained his confidence, like being in the West Wing. I just really need them not to kill off the one black lead who's like a young black man.
Yeah, I could do with that not happening.
Sorkin not to do that.
We should have learnt our lesson with Morris, that we can't just bring people in and then kill them off.
Also, then it would be that the two people you've killed off over the course of the season are like two young black men, which
doesn't feel great.
No.
Optics wise. So that's that, Leigh. That is the last episode of season 1.
That is the last episode recap.
And what kind of day has it been? It's been a hell of a day.
Truly.
I have no idea what you're going to teach me about because, like, where do we go from here?
So, because we kind of completed quite a big arc for Charlie in this episode, I thought we would do a little study sesh on what Charlie's job even is and the history of the role of the president's body man, as it's known, kind of colloquially, or personal aide to the president is obviously the official title.
I would love that.
So the role kind of was formalized. It grew out of President Nixon changed it from the traditional role of the presidential valet.
Okay.
And Nixon was the last president to come to the White House with his own personal valet. And then he kind of created the role of personal aide. But I think that part of the reason why the role stopped being referred to as the presidential valet and became the president's personal aide or the president's body man, I think, is to distance it from the history of where this role originated. Because the presidential valet is someone who would take care of the president's clothing. They're a personal assistant, messenger, confidant, nurse, barber, bartender, waiter, and companion. You know, they witness the most private moments of the president's life. Some were historically considered, unofficial members of the first family. But the first 3 presidential valets, so the presidential valet for George Washington, James Madison, and John Tyler were all slaves.
I kind of thought that might be where this was going.
Yeah. So William Lee, who was George Washington's presidential valet, was freed in Washington's will.
You know, when you're like, I would love to say, oh, that's so nice, but like contextually, it's still not.
No. I mean, he was still enslaved to George Washington for the length of George Washington's life.
Yeah.
But James Madison's presidential valet, Paul Jennings, actually wrote quite a seminal work. He was an enslaved person when he was working as the presidential valet. He later bought his freedom. He remained working with James Madison until James Madison's death. James Madison's widow then sold Paul Jennings to another owner, but Paul Jennings subsequently bought his freedom from that owner. And once he'd bought his freedom, he published A Colored Man's Reminiscences of James Madison, which was published in 1865 and is considered to be the first White House memoir.
Hey, I love that. I think that's incredible to be publishing work from like the perspective of like being inside the White House, but like back then and as a person of color.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
And for our patrons, I'll link this in my study notes, but you can actually read the book online, and it's very short. So I had a read of most of it, and it's a really valuable historical resource in terms of like what life was like in the early days of the United States. I'll quote from it now. When Mr. Madison was chosen president, we came on and moved into the White House. The East Room was not finished and Pennsylvania Avenue was not paved, but was always in an awful condition from either mud or dust. The city was a dreary place. It's just fascinating imagining the White House that Paul Jennings moved into.
Yeah, it's so fascinating thinking of like DC before it was DC, like before it was like the city that it is now. Because when you visit there, when I went, I was like, wow, everything is like so like shiny and white and clean and everything is marble. And like you kind of forget about the fact that like the journey it would have taken for like all of those buildings to be like a pre-Smithsonian era.
Yeah, literally. Paul Jennings also says in his book, I was always with Mr. Madison till he died and shaved him every other day for 16 years. For 6 months before his death, he was unable to walk and spent most of his time reclined on a couch, but his mind was bright, and with his numerous visitors, he talked with as much animation and strength of voice as I ever heard him in his best days. I was present when he died. That morning, Suki brought him his breakfast as usual. He could not swallow. His niece, Mrs. Willis, said, "What's the matter, Uncle James?" "Nothing more than a change of mind, my dear." His head instantly dropped and he ceased breathing as quietly as the snuff of a candle goes out.
Oh my God.
I selected that as a quote to read, first of all, because I think it shows the kind of relationship that Paul Jennings had with James Madison, not only through his presidency, but afterwards, but also just because I think it really gives an indication of the kind of man that Paul Jennings was in the way that he describes being present for the moment of this man's death.
Yeah.
And I think it's really beautifully described and clearly was a moment that made a really big impression on Paul Jennings.
Definitely.
Some other notable presidential valets from history. Irvin McDuff was FDR's valet, and he was essential to the president in a way that was unique amongst presidential valets because FDR was obviously disabled. And so Irvin McDuff was a huge part of assisting him with his disability. George Thomas was JFK's presidential valet, and he helped JFK in and out of the brace that he wore to ease his painful back, despite the fact that his chronic condition was hid from the public to maintain a youthful image.
Yeah, and there's all of that like info surrounding basically that JFK was on like very, very heavy opiate medication for pain.
Yeah. So this role of presidential valet, as I say, from kind of the Nixon administration onwards, has been modernized into what is now called personal aide to the president, or what is kind of casually known as the president's body man. It's like an assistant kind of organizing the president's everyday life. They're often the first person to greet the president in the morning, and they walk the president back to the residence at night. They travel with POTUS. They are the president's go-to person if they need a newspaper, briefings, or like even a pen.
It's very much more like a PA role now, isn't it?
Steve Ricchetti, who's a longtime Biden aide and counselor to the president, said, "You're literally the border of where the president's privacy and public duties sit. You have to have the right touch and the right skill set."
The level of trust that someone, when we go back to Charlie being hired, like, it was a very casual hiring, I think, for a very serious role because, like, realistically, you've got the president's ear. Like, you're a secret keeper.
Oh, fully. But I think if we go back to that episode in our minds, when Charlie is hired, he's put forward from a previous interview, basically based on his energy and his personality and his soft skills that came across in his initial interview. They basically said, "We think you have the right personality type for this really specific job." I'd now like to dive into the story of one of the most interesting, from my perspective, people who has held this role, which is Reggie Love, who was President Obama's body man in his first term in office. Reggie Love was a graduate of Duke University. He was a political science major, and he was captain of the basketball team at Duke.
Duke.
And he had a short stint in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers.
Wait. So he played basketball, but then he played American
He was originally
football?
recruited to Duke for football and ended up also playing on the basketball team.
Oh my God. Okay. Obsessed with Reggie. Also, he would have therefore met Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, which
Yeah.
makes me love him
Huge.
even more. Huge news for Reggie.
Yeah.
Also, I love that this is the person that Obama chose to like be hanging out with all the time.
Yeah. So the NFL wasn't really working out. And so a friend recommended Reggie Love to Pete Rouse, who was at the time an aide to a young, fresh-faced senator from Illinois. And Reggie Love has been quoted as saying that he took the job with Obama originally because I thought he was a guy who represented a lot of what I stood for, education, healthcare, and he was a brother.
Okay, I have a strong love for Reggie. Is Reggie going to make me cry?
Reggie's a vibe. Reggie is definitely a vibe. I can send you some videos of some interviews with Reggie.
Please do.
He said that the hardest time was just like building that relationship of trust with Obama early in their relationship and like really earning his trust. So he worked as like a junior aide on Obama's staff while Obama was senator. And then he describes how he ended up being Obama's body man. When he announced his run for presidency, I kind of felt a little lost because I was 22 at the time. I'd never worked a national campaign. I felt like there was a lot of people in the Obama world who had worked for Kerry and they kind of knew what they wanted to do. And I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And so I went to Pete Rouse and I said, Pete, like, what do you think I would be good at doing? And he said, why don't you go on the road and kind of take care of stuff? He didn't call it a body guy. He didn't say you were going to be on the road 29 days a month. He didn't say you're not going to sleep for many, 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 many months, but said, go and just handle stuff and try to make things easier for the candidate. And so that's what I did. And, look, it was definitely something I'd never done before. I made a lot of mistakes. I always joked that even though I made a lot of mistakes, I never made the same mistake twice. I think I left a suit jacket in New Hampshire, his briefcase the day before the first debate in a car in Florida, trying to find meals in random towns that aren't deep fried, smothered, covered in ranch and blue cheese and batter. By the end of it, I think I got the hang of it and didn't get fired, although I came pretty close a couple of times.
That's great because that's so like the energy that Jen Psaki had as well, which was like, when I first started doing the job, like I messed up a bunch of times, like her talking about the weather and making him do the thing outdoors.
That was Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Oh, sorry. That's my mistake. Sorry. I've got my women mixed up. That's on me. But I feel like Jen Psaki also has similar stories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully.
But I just like the idea that like, when you think of people who are working in politics, you're like, oh, like there's never an opportunity to get things wrong. And so I really like it when we hear stories of people being like, oh, I messed up, like, and it was bad and like I nearly lost my job.
Yeah. Also, like, I think it's very interesting to think about like this young 22-year-old being the person that is like around Barack Obama the most on the campaign trail in 2008. And kind of what that relationship ends up being. He also talks about time on the campaign trail and how he earned Obama's trust, saying, so I went to the gym. We worked out during the campaign mainly because the trip director, Marvin Nicholson, was like, look, you need to be in the gym with him because he can't be late. So if he's in the gym, you need to be there with him. And so I was like, all right, well, if I'm at the gym, I might as well work out. But we did have a fair amount of fun playing hoops. Basketball for Barack Obama was, I think it's one of the big equalizers that he talks about in terms of, you can tell a lot about people in terms of how they play the game. He talks a lot of trash when he wins. You go to like, a place like New Hampshire and you play basketball with a bunch of firefighters and police officers and, people look at you differently.
Which just goes to show like, we have discussed when famously we had the basketball episode, there is something about a politician who can pull off playing a sport.
Yeah, fully.
That does make you trust them more.
Yeah, definitely. Especially a team sport, being like, oh, you can pass a ball to someone.
Yeah. You can share.
Yeah.
You can strategize with a group.
Yeah, you can set up another player for success.
Yeah.
He also talks about an interviewer asked him, early on, you decided not to talk politics with him. And over time, that helped you develop an easy camaraderie focused on your shared interest in sports. Why did you take that tack? And Reggie Love responds by saying, I was 23 when I started working for him, so what was I going to advise him on? When there was something he couldn't do or didn't understand, he'd ask me and I'd give my take. Sometimes people can give advice to people and they don't even know it's advice. If you spend your time trying to convince someone what you want to do is the right thing, you're not always going to have a great success rate. Sometimes the best way to be an advisor is to ask good, thoughtful questions to show you're paying attention, to show you understand.
That is such good advice.
He also talks about the decision he left the White House in 2011 to go and get his MBA. The interviewer asks, a lot of people look at an assistant job as a starting point, but you didn't seem to be angling for promotions. Why not? And Reggie Love said, everything doesn't have to be linear. Just because you don't move up today doesn't mean you can't move up a few years from now. Also, one of the challenges of being 23 and going to work for someone is that when you're that young, people always tend to see you as that 23-year-old, even once you're 30.
Again, that's so intuitive because he's so right, isn't he? Like, if you start somewhere at the bottom and you're like very fresh-faced, especially I imagine in like a political workplace where like your credentials are kind of everything, right? Well, people are like, oh, but you're always going to be the new guy.
Yeah. You're always going to be the like young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
And so Reggie Love has written a book, which I would be super interested to read. It's called Power Forward, My Presidential Education. And he talks about the go-to items that he had to have on him at all times as Obama's body man was tons of Purell hand sanitizer, a Metrex energy bar, and Nicorette to help the president curb his craving for cigarettes.
Oh my God, Obama, you dirty little smoker.
Yeah.
I didn't know Obama loved a little cig.
Yeah. Yeah. He also talks about like giving Obama a fist bump before he went out to his inauguration and being like one of the last people like still backstage with him before he went out to take the oath of office. And he said of Obama and like what he learned from him, Reggie Love said, I've had some really great mentors and folks who've had an impact on my life. And I think Obama is almost like a father to me. I think often of the things that I learned from him specifically. I knew the definition of empathy, but I don't think I knew what empathy was until we spent 2 years traveling on the campaign. He and I got into a little tiff because, he said, it was the day after the inauguration. And he said, the inauguration went and I didn't see your parents the entire time. And I said, yeah, no, they're here. They're around. And he goes, well, you should bring them by the White House. And my mom and I were in an argument over tickets and who and when. And I said, sir, I just can't deal with them right now. You've got a lot of work to do here. It's the first day of us being in the White House. We've got all this stuff to figure out. And he says, well, look, I'm the leader of the free world and I'd like to say hello to your mother and father. So you should get them here now. And, so I call my mom and dad and I'm like, hey guys, where you at? And can you guys come to the White House for a minute? And it's still one of the most meaningful things to happen to my mom and dad. But the point that he was making to me was that you only get your parents for a little bit of time. So don't waste it being upset over tickets. Just, take the time and enjoy it with them because you don't get it back. And I think because of his perspective and the way how early on he lost his mother, that was one of the things he always sort of drilled into me. And I hope I try to do. And I tell my mom, I try to, I'm not Barack Obama, but I try. Fiona's gone. Fiona's fully gone. Fiona's crying.
I said, Leigh, is he going to make me cry? And he has. I miss Obama.
Yeah, I miss Obama. Don't we all miss Obama?
I mean, obviously he's not dead.
I know. It's just, he's
just not our president.
He's not the president.
Yeah. Okay, right. I'm good. I'm back in the room.
I'm going to close out by saying, I think he always cared more about doing the thing that was right than he ever cared about being a politician. We used to find real people. We called them real people because you'd find folks that are local and we'd set up a round table discussion for them. And he would have dialogues with people in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina. And I remember the first time of many in which a young woman who was a single mother was trying to get her degree and raise her kids had car problems. And he had me call his accountant and get an anonymous check sent to this woman so that she could get her car fixed. And some people would say, like, this is kind of the perfect thing or story that makes you seem human and connects you with Iowans. And for him, he said, look, I want this woman to be hopeful. I want her to have a chance. I want her to be able to do the things she wants to do to provide for her family and to better further her own education. And it was more about that than how do I look and how do I appear. He was on this trajectory and, you win the nomination and you're a rock star and you give this great speech at the DNC. And sometimes the flair might have betrayed him as someone who was above what it means to know what it's like to chase the American dream. But I know he's gone, he's like ugly crying. But I know he always stayed near to it. And, I think it was something that he always worked at. And the guy always wanted to be a great father and a great husband. I have a lot of respect and admiration for how, even though he was running for president or as president, he always put those things right up there on the same level of priority. I have a huge amount of admiration for that. And when I get to that stage in my life, I hope that I'll be able to, follow in those type of footsteps. Because part of Reggie Love's job was to find time in Obama's day for him to call Michelle and for him to call his daughters. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And to be like, okay,
and the dogs, obviously, to just like see the dogs as well.
To be like, okay, you have 10 minutes now. Like you can call Sasha and Malia, Fee's destroyed. Reggie Love has destroyed Fiona.
I'm just nostalgic for a simpler time.
I know. We all are.
Like, okay. Do you know what? This is just all end of season weepies. I'm just a bit weepy. It's the end of season 1. Reggie's got to me.
We don't know who's down.
I don't know who's down, Leah. Who will be lost? I need to put a cold flannel on my face and lie down.
Yeah. What a sensational first season. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along the ride and for listening to our insane ramblings about this TV show from the year 2000.
Constantly in a state of surprise and awe that any of you are in any way interested to listen to the shite that we bang on about.
We will be back next week with like a season recap episode, which I'm really excited for. We've got some of your listener questions that we're so excited to answer. And then fear not, we will be back for season 2 because I need to know who's down.
Yeah, we can't leave it on that sort of cliffhanger.
In the meantime, please do check out our Patreon. We're so grateful. All of the money that comes in through our Patreon just means that this podcast is like more sustainable for us to do. Mm-hmm. And we really want to keep going all the way through however many seasons of The West Wing there are. So if you could help us out with that would be phenom. Yeah, and we've just like so enjoyed doing this for season 1, and thank you for everyone who's followed us, who on the socials at Queer Gals Watch, the lovely people who sent emails, and we'll be back with you next week for a recap, an emotional debrief,
a roundup, if you will.
Precisely.
Rightly. Cool. I'm going to go and crush a pint of water to replace my tears, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.